So this is Andy Biggs, congressman and the Republican candidate for governor of the state of Arizona, and Sine Kerr.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Well done.
Thank
That's
you
not
very
an easy
much.
name.
We're all working. You're the most talked about name in Arizona in politics today, that's for sure. Where does that first name come from?
It is Danish, and I'm named after my great-grandmother and an aunt.
Oh, is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
It's a beautiful name.
Thank you. Thank you. I've had to explain, how to pronounce it and all about my name my whole life.
I bet it doesn't sound like it's spelled.
Exactly. Yeah.
Sure.
Well, everyone will know your name soon enough.
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful.
Well, the way it worked out was we had this interview set with Congressman Biggs probably, I think, going back about a month or so. And then at 6 o'clock this morning, a news release dropped that you had made your choice for lieutenant governor. This is the first time we're experiencing this in Arizona. Tell us a little bit about your thought process.
Yeah, so as I've told you before, Ron, I mean, I had literally 70 or so, 75 people apply effectively, and we were looking through, and I wanted certain chops. I wanted good legislative experience. I wanted somebody who knew federal government, those types of things, and then I would meet with some of these folks, and I met with Sine and her husband, and got to know her, and I'll tell you, just couldn't have a better pick right now for lieutenant governor. She has got a wealth of experience, broad experience, business, private business, working in the federal government, all of the things that you want from somebody who could step in and actually run a government agency or take over when I go out of town.
Okay. Tell us then a little bit more about yourself, about I always say we start with the hard questions, we get to the fun questions later on. So this guy has a band. I still want to see him sometime
You did mention that
with
this
the
morning.
guitar.
I said, really?
Or what is the instrument do you play?
Well, guitar and piano and keyboards.
Okay,
yeah.
Good. All right, great.
Yeah.
I want to see tape. But we'll get to the fun stuff with you and your background and growing up and all of that first. But what do you think makes you the best qualified candidate to be Arizona's first lieutenant governor?
Well, first of all, to get to work alongside Andy Biggs is an incredible opportunity. I think I provide our ticket a good balance. We have Andy Biggs is a prosecutor, more of an urban person, and then I represent, the rural areas of Arizona, and I provide that perspective.
Mm-hmm. And you and your husband have been in the farming business for a very long time. Mm-hmm, yes. How have you seen? Sorry, Des, I feel like I'm jumping in with all these questions. Get ready. I know you got a bunch of them. How have you seen the agricultural world change in the last, 45 years you've been up to this?
Yeah, so it has changed, and I would say for the better. We continue to utilize the latest technologies that come out. Farming, the ag industry have been industry leaders in that. We've utilized drones before, a lot of other industries were using it, autonomous tractors, that type of thing, and then conservation techniques. So whether, it's irrigation efficiencies, just making sure your ditches are lined with cement and your laterals and everything. Mm-hmm. And so we just keep getting better at what we do, doing more with less. We're producing, more food now on less land, using less inputs, all of that. So it's changed in a good way.
And what do you think? So this was a big announcement, finding out who your selection was for lieutenant governor. And then just not long ago, we're hearing from the federal government kind of stepping in to make a decision when it comes to the use of the Colorado river water. And the lower Basin states now taking a big hit here. As it relates to agriculture, have you been able to look at some of those guidelines that they just came out, but how is that going to impact rural Arizona and our farming community?
Well, so this is a 10-year deal. The first 2 years, you're going to have the lower basin states, Arizona, California, and Nevada are making reductions. The upper basin states aren't making any reductions, which kind of ticks me off. But I'll leave that aside. But the reality is By working with California, we've seen that Arizona's going to get a little slightly better deal than the original proposed deal, but it still will have impact. But the one thing I'll say, and Sine can talk to this, is the farmers and the agriculture industry, they adapt. They say, tell us what the rules are, we'll adapt, and we'll be that. Will be what we need to do to continue to produce, and we want them to produce. But we also have Arizona. We're in the desert. We have to manage our water, and so we have other things that we have to do with regard to, say, groundwater and groundwater management as well.
Are we facing the real possibility of some pretty extreme cuts to the residential? I know you're well versed to talk about agriculture. Let's just talk about our cities and our suburbs. What's coming our way?
Well, I don't think there should be panic about it at all. I think it's water management. We have a lot of water underground, which is one of the reasons that we got punished for being good conservationists of water. And so the reality is I don't anticipate that happening anytime real soon. But what we need to do is we're going to have to make sure we have our infrastructure in place to pull that water out, clean that water up, and distribute that water. And that's something that we'll have to do going forward. But it's not time to panic now. What it is time is to take a step back, manage it, and realize that they've booted the can down the road about 2 years again, but we're taking it on the chin. And the fight's not over yet. It'll be implemented by October, but some of us continue to work with the administration, trying to make them see, what can I say, a little bit more reason.
Will you have any say in this now that the feds have kind of come out and said, look, this is the deal? Are you able to, if you were to be elected, for example, say no? I mean, there's got to be more cuts from those other states, the upper Basin states.
Your resolution now is to actually, you could probably get an appeal process, but it'd be largely moving into litigation, which might not be beneficial for the state of Arizona or any other state in the basin. What we would really want to do is continue to push and have collaborative meetings and see if we can work something out. But the upper tier, the upper basin states right now, they're not willing to budge, particularly, and I've got good friends in Colorado, but Colorado is not willing to budge right now.
Okay. Former Senator Kerr, you have stated before that Arizona's rural communities have come under attack from Democrat Katie Hobbs, and you promised that rural Arizona will always have a seat at the table in your administration, if that's what we see in November. What does that look like? What does rural Arizona need?
They need a strong voice, a fair voice, and someone who understands how critical they are. A lot of our rural cities and towns depend on thriving agriculture for them to succeed as well. I always say we don't just raise beef and grow crops, we grow economies where we are in agriculture. And so it's important that we succeed so that our rural economies succeed, and when our farming and ranching community is prosperous, Arizona is prosperous.
Cost of living is number one, I think, for most people.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if you have a take on this when it comes to agriculture and working with our farmers. You can both jump in on this. Congressman Biggs, for example, everybody wants to hear what a governor is going to do, but a governor exists in one state out of 50. What can you do to actually try to make the situation somewhat better?
Well, what you can do is you can start dealing with taxes. You can deal with reduction in taxes. You can reduce regulation on housing, for instance. We need about $140,000, or about roughly 40% of the average cost now is permitting and other costs. We need to work on trying to mitigate that. That's something a governor can do, working with the local jurisdictions as well, and you got to be able to sit down and talk to them about that.
And as it relates to affordability, right, we talk about it all the time. We're like,
we
home
do.
prices
Yeah,
are
we
just
do.
through the roof, right? And Arizona ranks high on many lists median home price right now is sitting above $450,000. what do you do moving forward? I know you said, kind of loosening some of the regulations when it comes to housing, but what does that really look like?
Well, a significant portion of that is permitting and regulatory costs. So you want to deal with it on that side. But the other part is you're dealing with a lot of space constraints, so that we have dormant assets. I mentioned this last time I was here, Ron. You've got roughly 8.5 million acres of land, state trust land, and we're not moving very much of it every year. But that money's intended to actually benefit K-12. So if you move a little bit more of it, you'll have more land that's more available to build houses, but you'll also have more money, cash, going in to build that principal. And instead of a dormant asset, it'd be an active asset for K-12 education.
Okay.
All right, let's shift to...
and we're coming up to a break here soon.
For goodness sakes, I was just about to get into some really good questions.
I know, I'm like, looking at the time, it's already
13 minutes in.
Yeah.
Thank you, Des.
30 seconds away.
Guess what? We still do a mystery cam. Well, anyway, we welcome you back. We got a statement in from Governor Hobbs' campaign manager. So here we go. This was after the news broke that Sine Kerr is Congressman Biggs' running mate. All you need to know about Sine Kerr is that she is so extreme, she agreed to be the running mate of Andy Biggs, a Washington insider who sided with a corrupt pedophile cult, shielded sex traffickers, covered for Jeffrey Epstein, stood with the powerful and well-connected, and backed policies that raise grocery and gas costs for Arizona families. Congressman.
What's your reaction?
My reaction is this is coming from someone who's taking credit for the no tax on tips. This is coming from...
Go ahead and start over. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I want to make sure we got you on cam.
Yeah, this is coming from somebody who's taking credit for no tax on tips, which is clearly false. She vetoed that 3 times. This is coming from somebody who claims that she's lowered the cost of housing, which we know is not true. We just talked about that. She's also claiming that she reduced the utilities for every Arizona. That's not true. Nobody at this table's seen, probably in the last 4 years, your utility costs go down. Mm-hmm. This is somebody who has no policy ideas, so she's resorting to just making up stuff here on her commercials and everywhere else. And I think Sine's she can talk to you about working with her as well. But I was the judiciary chairman that actually got legislation through that protected children from sexual exploitation on the internet. It wasn't Katie Hobbs. Katie Hobbs was vetoing stuff like that. I don't know, Sine.
Do you want to react to that?
Absolutely. Yes. No, she has, talk about pedophile protecting. She has vetoed some really excellent victims' rights bills that protect children. One protects children with disabilities from being, if the employer doesn't do a thorough background check and there is someone who is on the sex offender registry and that doesn't come up, she vetoed that. And that would have protected children with disabilities. It's just horrific. Then a bill of mine that would put it very narrow, put certain level 1 sex offenders that committed crimes and convicted of crimes, dangerous crimes against children, put them on the public website, and she vetoed that. Talk about protecting these heinous convicted perpetrators.
I'm looking at some notes here that say that when you were in the legislature, you sponsored a proposal that would have made it a crime for a physician to perform an abortion after it was determined that a fetus had a detectable heartbeat. It was tacked onto a different bill that had been approved by the House without license plates, but it did contain an exception if the mother's life is in danger, but no exception for rape or incest. First of all, is that accurate? And what's your response to that?
Yes. So I let, I believe it was Senator Wendy Rogers, I let her use my bill as a vehicle bill. And, on the whole matter, the voters have spoken. And so, that's a moot point. But so that's how that legislation came about. They were using my vehicle bill.
And what is your current stance on a woman's access to abortion? And can we see if we do see your administration come November, can you make any changes to that? Do you plan to do that, or will Proposition 139, stand where it is?
Well, Proposition 139 was passed by the voters, and so it's protected by the voters. And if a change is going to take place, it's going to come from the voters. I don't like Prop 139. I'll be the first to admit it, and I'm not going to contest that. But that seems to be the law of this land in the state of Arizona.
All right, let's talk about, we have a poll question up this morning. Do you want to see Katie Hobbs and Andy Biggs debate? You probably didn't even know we had you in one of our poll questions.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
I was stunned.
So here's the QR code. This is a great way. It's an active poll this morning. So 76% say, yeah, voters deserve a robust debate. And then in YouTube, let's see if and look at that, well over 1,000 votes, 1,500 votes, close to 80% there saying Arizona voters deserve a robust debate.
But it doesn't look like we're going to get one. I mean, the Hobbs campaign has come out and said that she will not debate you in October. You still plan to go to that debate. Why is that? Just what do you think of that? Not the willingness not to debate there.
I'm not shocked by it, number one. Number two, I think it's a shame that she's not going to be willing to debate. I think she should come on and defend her record. And so instead of issuing false snipes like that, we could actually have a debate about real policy issues. I think that's important. And I guess the third thing that I'd say is she says that she doesn't want to debate. She wants to get out and meet with Arizonans. Guess what? I've been out meeting with Arizonans from every part of the state, every corner of the state, and somehow I think I can find time to come and have a debate with the current governor, and I'll defend my policies and we'll question hers. It's a shame that she's a little bit cowardly, it seems to me.
Is there anything in either of your opinions that she has done right as governor that you will stand behind? If there's a positive you can give us, and the number one thing you may change, your first day or month in office.
So I will tell you, I think she got it finally correct on the no tax on tips, right? But she's taking credit for it. And the reality is we passed it in Congress first. It was a federal idea. It was Donald Trump, which is why she vetoed it. She didn't veto it because of policy. She vetoed it because she didn't want Donald Trump policies in Arizona. But the bottom line is, it is a great policy for the working class person. It is a great policy that we're not going to tax overtime. It's a great policy we're not going to tax Social Security. The problem for her is she vetoed those 3 times. I think what she did finally in signing is a good thing, but own it. Own the fact that you vetoed it and didn't think it was a good idea for most of the year.
Are there any executive orders that she has issued that you would rescind? And do you plan to issue any executive orders on day one?
She issued the moratoriums on building homes to the fastest growing communities in the country, and I think the court saved me from having to rescind that because the court said that was unconstitutional and she couldn't do it. That's the main one that comes to mind. But there are a host of water management executive orders and directives that she's issued that we're going to have to revisit and cure and fix, in my opinion.
All right, let's talk just a little bit more then about, we've covered abortion, we've covered executive orders, we've covered water, we've covered all of these things. Let's talk about President Trump. He won the state of Arizona, but his approval numbers have continued to drop as the war has dragged on. You have been one of his most vocal supporters, but he is facing a time here where those numbers are dropping as gas prices continue to go up. How do you continue to be a Trump conservative and reach the middle of the electorate, which could very well decide this election?
Well, I think one thing that Arizonans appreciate is that under Katie Hobbs, we've gone from being one of the most affordable states to being one of the least affordable states. And she's blaming federal government. She's blaming Donald Trump. But that's a factual problem for her. Because if the national economy is negatively impacting our state, then it would negatively impact every state, and you would have the same ratio. Her policies have carried us from one of the most affordable states down to one of the least affordable states, and so that's what we're going to have to deal with. And I believe people in the middle are like you and me and Desiree and Sina. We all want an affordable. We'd love to be able to afford a home. If you're just starting out, you want to have affordability. You want to be able to have public safety. We have, under her, we have one of only 2 states that we have an increasing in fentanyl overdose death. Only 2 states. These are the things that can be fixed.
And we have a couple questions, too. Folks watching want to get in on the conversation as well. So if we can ask one from Tatya Han. She says, I don't want income tax gone if Big wants to tax everything else. Can you ask him why he wants to replace income tax with a high sales tax on everything?
That's that 23% sales.
Yeah, and let's just debunk that. That was a bill that was filed in Congress. We never had a hearing. But guess what? Katie Hobbs refuses to acknowledge that everybody would have seen their taxes go down because there would be no more federal income tax. That would have really changed it. And guess what? When people say, I want the rich and wealthy to pay their fair share, you know what happens? You can't game a consumption tax. What else she doesn't bother to mention is there were cutouts and exemptions for people who made below a certain wage, which was in excess of the poverty level, and those people would have paid no tax. And so this was a complicated thing, but this is something that's been actually debated for 75 years. And we asked simply, can we debate it or at least have a hearing to see where we are as a people?
Okay. We got a minute left. Sine Kerr, tell us a little bit about yourself beyond the world of politics. Either growing up, I know your dad was a military veteran who served in 2 wars. What else can you tell us?
Yes.
We got 1 minute left.
Okay, I'll be quick. My mother was she immigrated from Mexico when she married my dad and became a naturalized citizen in 1969. She was very proud of that, and so I, carry a lot of my Hispanic heritage. Means a lot to me. I used to speak a lot more Spanish fluently. It was actually my first language because when my dad was deployed, she primarily spoke Spanish to us. And so grew up in Buckeye, fell in love with the farming community. Then in 1964, when we moved into the late 60s, early 70s, it was just very small, maybe 4,000 or 5,000 people, and primarily agriculture. And so met my husband in high school. At first, I didn't know he was a dairy farmer.
High school sweetheart.
Yes,
wow.
yes.
And with that, we're out of time. Do you also
That's a perfect note to end it, though. High school sweetheart.
I
You
do
have a
not
band.
have a band.
Okay.
No, but
Well, is that like an obligation now? You're going to have to join?
I don't know.
Thank you both for your
Thank
time
you.
today.
Thank
That was
you.
a